Amy, I have an itch and it is for a spicy dark romance and I need one bad.
I have the book for you. It is A Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. It was a huge indie hit on Book Talk, and I think it is right up your alley.
It seriously has some of my favorite tropes, like shifters, vampires, witches. You know how I feel about vampires. There can never be enough. It has the best morally gray characters, fated mates, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her and die. One bed, one horse, he falls first. Enemies with benefits.
I love enemies with benefits. Don't tell me your feelings at all. Just ravage me, please.
I need to read this immediately.
I love that there's even LGBTQ rep. The series overall features romantic relationships like MFM polyamory, MM, and FM. Give it all to me.
You know how I love to feel devastated by reading a book? A Reign of Shadows and Endings is it.
And if you're like Jack and I and you love special editions, there is a gorgeous deluxe version with stenciled edges, foil details, and full color character arc from Kensington Publishing.
It is, in fact, in my heart currently.
We're so excited to read it, and you can too. You can find A Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
You can also find Melissa online at her website, melissakRorick.com, at Melissa_K_Rorick on Instagram, and at author Melissa K. Rorick on TikTok. That's ROEHRIC.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact that you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Here's a little tune to help you remember. Same drive, different day. Don't you wish you were getting away? Pack your bags and come on through. Texas, Ohio, Alaska, we're up there too. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Well, I hope you like my little song. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Nesta and Cassian return to the House of Wind, where training resumes with the aspiring Valkyries who face down the infamous White Ribbon. Attending an evening service with the priestesses, Nesta unexpectedly scries for the harp, leading her and Cassian to the prison to retrieve it. There, they face the ancient, terrifying Lanthus, and Nesta chooses to fight alongside Cassian to survive, wielding ataraxia with surprising results. Back in Valoris, Nesta shares a wordless reconciliation with Farah, and at Rhys's request, begins her rigorous dance training with Mor in anticipation of winter solstice celebrations at the Hewn City. As she focuses on making steps towards healing, Nesta visits the old cottage with Cassian for closure, and by solstice, she sits beside a fire for the first time and is able to endure the discomfort.
Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
And we bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up Book Talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books, treated with the same respect you give any classic in literature class, just with more humor and less homework for you.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way. We also analyze the story through two different literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
This week, we're discussing A Court of Silver Flames, the most divisive book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. In this episode, we cover chapters 51 through 56.
For a complete list of episodes and the chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about Spilt, spoilers, perspective, interpretation, language, and themes.
Spoilers. This episode covers Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Silver Flames with full context from the preceding books in the ACOTAR series. That includes Thorns and Roses, Mist and Fury, Wings and Ruins, and Frost and Starlight. If you haven't read those books, this is your only spoiler warning. Anything in SJM's other series will be saved for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode that airs this Wednesday.
Perspective and interpretations. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text. We don't speak for Sarah J. Maas, and we know you'll have your own interpretations too. We love hearing them, so share away.
Language. We use explicit language, and we don't bother trying to stop ourselves.
Fuck yeah. Themes. We will discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We will do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use the submission form on our website. And if you'd like exclusive content and live streams, you'll find us over at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk.
Can't get enough of analysis? Make sure to check out the Subtext Society Journal, where we write think pieces discussing the romance and romantasy genres as a whole, the ongoing conversations in the bookish community, and insights into the publishing world. Join us over at the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com.
This week, we're asking ourselves the question, in what way do the small victories in these chapters outweigh the larger ones?
Themes that we see in this section include vulnerability and intimacy, facing what haunts you, and friendship as a path to healing. So we're in part 3, which is Valkyrie.
We begin with chapter 51, and Cassian and Nesta are back at the House of Wind in Velaris. And you know what? They're back in the training ring with Gwyn, Emery, Az, and all the other priestesses. The tone and setting is kind of playful. Quote, "The crisp morning wind ruffled Nesta's hair." I know that seems silly, but it could have been the crisp morning wind blew through Nesta's hair, or disheveled.
Ruffles is like what you do when like MMC just kind of like ruffles her hair type thing.
Exactly. And Cassian is always compared to the wind. Nesta's compared to the wind in each other's points of view. And that metaphor, I feel like, continues. That lighthearted atmosphere conveys in some ways that the burden within Nesta's heart has lifted, even if she's not quite ready to see her sister. Quote, "She wasn't ready to see Feyre, though. For all she'd confessed to Cassian that step, she'd face it soon. You know, at least she's not like not thinking about it at all, or like, I never want to see Feyre again. She knows it has to happen. She's just also cognizant she's not brave enough to do it yet."
Which is really fun because later on she is going to face Feyre unexpectedly, like not by her own choice. And then sure enough, she starts facing other things that she's afraid of. So it's just kind of like a buildup of like, right now she's building it up in her head of like, I can't see Feyre. But once she does that and she gets her forgiveness and blessing, she's allowed to conquer other things.
Yep. It kind of opens the floodgates. The lighthearted atmosphere also means we're getting a lot of dirty thoughts from Nesta. We learned that Nesta and Cassian spent a couple extra days at the lake, quote, "fucking like animals on the shore, in the water, bent over a boulder as she moaned his name so loudly it echoed off the peaks around them. He'd taken her over and over, and she'd clawed at him and torn his skin every time, as if she could climb into him and fuse their souls." That's a little intense, even for Nesta. The language Nesta uses in this episode when she thinks about sex with Cassian is becoming extremely and more increasingly intimate, especially on an emotional level. The emotional intensity in general is going to escalate throughout this episode, even though she can't articulate those emotions. In some ways, now that Nesta has unburdened her soul to him about her fears, about what she struggles with, knowing that Cassian hasn't rejected her, it's like it's made him more attractive to her, and she can be kind of more honest with herself about her feelings. Like, yes, I want our bodies and our souls to fuse together. Later, she's going to be like, I want him to imprint himself on my bones. I'm like, okay, girl.
But, she's not quite ready to take the mate step next, which is fine. She has her reasons, to which I think are fairly legit, to give her time. But, every time they talk about sex, it becomes more and more intimate. It goes from like, we're just having sex to like, I want him fused into my soul. And yes, like she covers it with like, we're fucking like animals and it's just as intense. But like, of course, their sexual intensity is going to match the emotional intensity as well. How the hell she doesn't get a UTI is beyond me. Like all this outdoor fucking, you're telling me that he's going to go rinse off with lake water? Lake water, and then go put that inside you, and then you're not going to, okay, talk Fey healing.
They got magic. They got potions for that.
Gwyn has introduced the silk ribbons as a test on whether, the Valkyries in training, and if they become like successful and have completed their training, as if they able to slice the ribbon. And Cassian, it kind of goes, well, yeah, and I guess that kind of makes sense. Quote, if you're able to slice this ribbon in two with one cut, then I'd say you can hold your own against most enemies, even if you've only been training for a little while. All right. Is that how training works? Is that how this works? Maybe not. But I also like how SJM is like, hey, does it make sense that these women are going to have trained for just like, some months and they beat all of these other Illyrian warriors? Maybe not. But I'm going to say that this ribbon is going to prove to you otherwise. While a lot of complaints about this is that it doesn't make any logical sense, I think that her adding this here is her asking us to be like, get on board.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, we're all going to lean in and we're all going to say, you know what? Okay.
They cut the ribbon.
That's
ribbon
right.
Makes sense. I'm going to go in.
Now, after training, Nesta and Cassian go into his room and have desk sex, which is maybe by some other people's standards quick and quote-unquote unromantic. But let me just take a moment to read this little quote, because apparently I enjoy reading quotes about sex. Quote, bent over the desk, her bottom half entirely exposed, Nesta ground her aching nipples into the wood surface, savoring the brutal crush. Her jacket, her shirt, her boots all stayed on. In fact, her pants were only pushed down to her ankles, restricting her movement further, leaving her utterly at his mercy. Now, why did I stop to talk about this? And maybe this is a little bit of a stretch, but in my mind, Nesta's current physical state mirrors her emotional state. She's starting to become exposed. And while she is exposed, she's also restrained. She's trying to keep those true feelings unsaid and hidden within herself. But as I mentioned earlier, to herself, she can admit that, quote, she wanted him imprinted on her very bones. It doesn't sound like casual sex to me. But, what do I know? I haven't had casual sex.
I, as someone who clearly has not either, what? Yeah, that's not how you feel.
That's not how you casual sex.
Yeah.
As Jack mentioned earlier, the more sex they have, the more feral both Cassian and Nesta become. Quote, exquisite, punishing thrusts slammed so deep he hit her innermost wall, and her eyes rolled back into her head at the sheer bliss of it. He became savage, unrelenting. The sounds that came from her weren't human or fey, but something far more primal. Now, the more feral they become, the more emotionally unrestrained Cassian and Nesta become. There continues to be a lot unsaid between them. It will continue to be that case. But in a lot of ways, all of this physical intimacy is summoning up more and more raw emotions between the two of them. And we're going to see that manifest throughout this episode. So every time there's a physical unleashing, just, there's probably emotional unleashing as well.
That innermost wall was her heart chamber.
Nice.
Like Amy was saying, every time Nesta and Cassian have sex, it's not about the sex. Like, it's always so much more. Quote, at the words, his foul language, her toes curled, but she wouldn't let him win this one. Not when this had somehow become a competition for who could make the other come first. So at this point, they're like dirty talking. And it's like, he says something dirty and then she says something dirty. And then it's like, I'm going to make this a competition. But again, sex is like very much heavily related with intimacy between the two. So, while this is kind of like a friendly competition, it's also so on brand for the two of them, where it's like this push and pull for power. Like both of them want to be on top, but at the same time, they also love not being on top when the other person is like winning. And sometimes both literally and figuratively with that. But it's fun to see because it really shows that they get to be who they are with one another, right? Like Nesta wouldn't be able to hide. I mean, even if she did hide this part of her, like, it wouldn't be for long and it wouldn't be fun. So Nesta reflects on training and the ribbon and the whole ribbon situation. Quote, Nesta had begun to resent the sight of a ribbon anywhere, tying back Rosalind's hair, folded in the accessories drawer of her dressing table, even bound for placekeeping into the latest romance Emery had loaned her. They all laughed at her, taunted her. It's funny because, like, you know, this is the insight to her mind and we're like, oh, haha, like, she's so funny. But at the same time, Nesta is not someone who likes to fail, particularly someone who likes to show her failure. Remember what Cassian said at the beginning of the book? Of course she doesn't want to train at Windhaven because people would see that failure. And now here she is, people seeing her failure. She doesn't like it.
But at least she's failing with her friends. They're all failing together. And also, I wrote, what the fuck? I had the same note and didn't put it into my notes. And then you wrote it and I was like, ah, half brain.
I was going to say, at least you can fail with your friends. And I'm like, Amy, we couldn't relate. We only succeed with each other. If you guys even knew
All the dumb shit we do.
Dumb, like, yeah.
Are we in our mid-30s? Because sometimes the dumb shit we do is
mid-20s?
Yeah, or, you know, teenagers.
Oh my God, you're finally in alignment. Yes, Amy, you blacked out. You had a weird dream. You think we're in our 30s. We're actually in our 20s. So Nesta's failure really messes with her mind. And this is all in one paragraph. Quote, so Nesta ran the steps in practice and failed. She took Cassian to her bed every night and sometimes during the day, though they never slept in each other's rooms. Not once. They fucked, they savaged each other, and then they parted. There's a reason why all of this is in one paragraph, and you're actually going to have like a very similar note throughout this episode. I saw, Amy, you have this note, and then I have a note again later on. And it really speaks volumes when you have one paragraph and what's happening in that one paragraph, because she views herself as failing with Cassian just as much because she's not good enough for him. And it's just like one big accumulation of her screwing up.
Now that Nesta is back in the House of Wind, she is, as Jack alluded to, back at the stairs. But unlike when she was angry in last week's episode, she is unable to complete the entire descent of the 10,000 steps. Quote, Nesta did not venture down to the city to see Feyre or Amren, but she kept going to the stairs. She hadn't been able to reach the bottom again. Part of her knew that if she wanted to, she might accomplish it, just as she might open her mouth and ask Cassian to take her to the river house. But she didn't. I found this quote particularly interesting in the context of our discussion from last week, and how in one way we could look at Nesta's descent down the 10,000 steps as a hollow victory. It was done out of rage. It was done with the sole purpose of yelling at Amren. And that was not the purpose of the stairs, or at least not what the stairs had become to Nesta. I like to think of the stairs as a metaphor for Nesta accessing the deepest, truest part of herself, right? Her going to Amren and yelling at Amren was actually accessing her hurt and anger, and probably needed to get out. And so right now, Nesta knows I am capable of accessing that pain. I don't necessarily want to access that pain right now. I'm not ready to be vulnerable. I don't want to talk to Amren and Feyre and be honest about how I feel, but I might one day, just not today.
Yeah.
And that is, as Jack read earlier, reflected in Nesta's inability to ask Cassian to stay in her bed after sex. Quote, they never slept in each other's rooms, not once. They fucked, they savaged each other, then they parted. She wanted to roll off him and snuggle into his warmth and fall asleep to the sound of his breathing, but he always left before she mustered the courage to ask. Like Jack said, there is fear of rejection and failure on Nesta's part. This clearly shows us that. And that fear of failure is what is holding her back from that next level of intimacy, not only with Cassian, but with everybody else. And part of it is because she still expects bad reactions, or she doesn't know how they'll react, and she doesn't want it to be a bad reaction.
Yeah, I think someone might read this and be like, Cassian clearly loves you. Like, every single time he says something about love, like later on, he's going to say, like, love comes in different forms. And then she's like, can't even look him in the eye because of like what it means. Like, on a level, she knows that he cares about her and loves her. And if she were to ask, that then takes things to the next level. Half of it is a fear of being rejected. The other half of it is a fear of what happens next.
Yeah, right. And it's not only a fear of rejection, but like you said, the fear of what happens next. And what if their relationship then fails? Whereas right now they've kind of got a good status quo that's working for everybody. But if it goes deeper, it could end. I also love this allusion to their fucking being quote unquote savage, as if it's uncivilized. What will make it civilized? Maybe being ready to admit the truth to each other. And like, hey, we love each other. Let's have civilized sex now.
Recommend it.
The next day or some other time in the future, Nesta asks Gwyn about the priestess's service that Gwyn has previously invited Nesta to. And Nesta says she wants to go if she's still allowed. And in this, we get some foreshadowing of Nesta scrying for the harp. Quote, Nesta knew she had to scry soon for the harp. She'd lost a good week in the mountains, and if Queen Briellen already had the crown, time was not on their side. But she said, you mentioned a while ago that you have evening services with music, right? Like Jack said in our previous point, all of this that I just read is all in the same paragraph, like 3 sentences, basically. Why? It's all tied together in Nesta's mind, which means we're about to see some scrying at the evening services.
So at this point, Nesta can't face Feyre or Amren, and she's like, well, what's the next best thing? That's seeing Gwen sing. And when Gwen tells her about the service and, you know, the singing and what it's like there, Nesta says she needs something like this. And you might be like, Jack, that was a really lame summary. No, she literally says, quote, I need something like this. But I felt like that was a stupid quote to say out loud. So I'm summarizing it this way, which doesn't help. But what it's about is Nesta not wanting to see Feyre yet, and not wanting to ask Cassian to stay. Instead, she needs to find her voice, and what better way of doing that with other women who have gone through really hard and horrible things, who have found their voice in different ways, in beauty, in art.
I like that. In a lot of ways, it's also very grounding for her, right? She feels uncertain with Feyre. In some ways, she feels uncertain with Cassian, but music is the thing that speaks to her soul, and so it's very safe. It brings her a sense of comfort. Now, while she discusses her need for music, Nesta opens up to Gwyn about why she's in the House of Wind, and Nesta is finally able to admit her gratitude for being there. Quote, I think I might be glad Feyre did this for me. The drinking, the males, I don't miss any of it, but the music, that I miss. Now, Nesta may never be able to admit to Feyre that she's grateful for what Feyre did, but she's able to admit it here to Gwyn because she ultimately feels safe with Gwyn. That safety is reflected in the description of the look Gwyn gives Nesta as she speaks. Quote, Gwyn's eyes shone, all like the sunlight on a warm sea. Lots of sunlight for Nesta here in this episode, guys.
Sorry, there was one thing that, like, in this book and in another book, Nesta says something similar about, like, how she doesn't get to hear music and how music isn't available. And then it got me thinking of, like, how spoiled we are that music is everywhere. You don't even have to try to be listening to music and you're hearing it. The TV is on. There's music in the background of the show. You're at the gym, there's music playing. You're at the grocery store, there's music playing. Like, you don't have to be playing music to constantly hear music. And then I was like, wow, what a quiet world. And we had that too. Like, before radios became all in vinyls and everything else, before all of that became popular and you had to hear people play, I hadn't really sat there and thought about, like, how quiet the world must have been.
Yeah. Or bland.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, what you hear. Now, during this conversation, Nesta does have a moment of self-doubt, and she begins to worry that Gwyn will stop looking at her with empathy because Gwyn will realize how horrible Nesta is. During this, though, Gwyn recognizes what Nesta's thinking and tells her to stop. And it's just a lovely little touch that SJM does to show how well Gwyn and Nesta know each other now.
Mm-hmm.
And Gwyn tells Nesta, quote, "You'll always be welcome to join me, Nesta." Nesta hadn't realized how badly she needed to hear it. She squeezed Gwyn's hand back. And it's just beautiful. Like, we're going to see a lot how Nesta actually craves genuine connection. And as she has learned with Cassian and now Gwyn and eventually Emery, all she has to do is ask. If she's willing to be vulnerable, she can have the connection that she wants.
Yeah. Like, if you just reach out and ask, you can say, hey, can you go to the bathroom and look at my nipple? It looks really weird. There's a crack in it, and I think there's something wrong.
This is why I need your Vaseline.
This is why I need your Vaseline. This is a direct conversation. Were we at a restaurant and I forced Amy to go to the bathroom and into the stall with me so I can show her my nipple and what was going on with it? Yeah. But she also gave me her Vaseline. So thank you.
Let's take a sip. All right, we are in chapter 52, and Nesta attends the evening service with the priestesses in their cavern under the library. Everything about this space is unexpected to Nesta. Quote, "Nothing else. No effigies or idols, no gilded furniture." I think the simplicity of the space is opposite to everything Nesta associates with the Fae, especially with the Night Court. I think it is, quite frankly, in my mind, also opposite of what I associate with religion. It's a cavern. There's nothing there. It's not decorated. It's not ostentatious. They're there for the sake of celebrating through music. And I think in some ways that minimalist approach to decoration gives a sense of purity of intent and worship that I think speaks to Nesta.
Yeah. I mean, it takes away the performative nature that is religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming from a person who was raised Catholic, and, you know, the amount of standing and kneeling and gold and smoke and bells going on there, like, there is a certain level of performance about it. And, you know, you strip that away and it becomes very raw.
Yeah, I agree. When the music begins, Nesta describes it as, quote, "pure, ancient, by turns whispering and bold, one moment like a tendril of mist, and next like a gilded ray of light." You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a lot of oxymorons, aka magic, aka the cauldron. Is there perhaps magic in the music? Maybe.
Nesta also describes Gwyn's singing to seem to glow. And later on, Nesta she apologized to Farah, and then Farah smiles at her, and it's kind of like dawn. And we're seeing a lot of like forgiveness, rebirth, and growing when you get this light, this glowing, this daylight type of imagery.
Yep. It's beautiful.
We also see daylight.
Yes, I was also thinking that song.
Time for a bargain with our sponsors. This show is sponsored by Liquid IV.
When I think of spring break, I think of Jack and I senior year Las Vegas. You know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what doesn't stay in Vegas is the hydration our body needs no matter what.
If there's anything that I needed from that trip, it's Liquid IV. And now that I'm older, I really need Liquid IV after going out. I drink Liquid IV's sugar-free hydration multiplier all the time. I'm not even exaggerating.
Liquid IV's hydration multiplier hydrates me better than water alone.
If you're going to Coachella or any music festival, this is the perfect thing to put in your purse because only one stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates faster than water alone. It's powered by LIV, Hydroscience, and an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration.
Compared to water, Liquid IV delivers longer lasting hydration and retains hydration for up to 4 hours. It's backed by a scientific advisory board with world-renowned researchers to conduct clinical research trials.
And for our vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free girlies, this is perfect for you.
It's always non-GMO and has delicious sugar-free options like mandarin orange, rainbow sherbet, my favorite, mango pineapple, and more.
Soak up unforgettable memories with on-the-go hydration from Liquid IV. Tear pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first purchase with code BookTalk at checkout.
That's 20% off your first purchase with code BookTalk, BOOKTALK, at liquidiv.com. We start to see a lot of the number 7, which also has magic vibes. The bell is rung 7 times before the singing starts, and the singing itself, quote, was like a braid, the song, A plait of 7 voices, weaving in and out, individual strands that formed a pattern.
I love the description of a plait, like it's your hair being braided, and it's very feminine, right? I mean, boys can plait their hair too, but like, when we think about braiding, we think about women, but at the same time, it almost sounds like a war drum in a way. Like, I'm not saying that this is like just a girly experience. It's just that it feels very much like the divine feminine power moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And braids can also be associated with war braids.
Yep. Very, very true. I associate braids with you and I going to Europe for our 30th birthday year, and every single day me being like, Amy, braid my hair, please.
Or when you go to Disneyland and you're like, can you braid my hair, please?
Can you braid my hair, please? You haven't braided my hair in a long time.
I haven't. You've been learning to do it yourself, and I'm proud of you.
It's not good enough. I love how Nesta feels so connected with Gwen's singing. Quote, Gwen's voice soared like a bird through the cavern as she started the third song with a solo. Something beckoned in Gwen's song in a way the others hadn't, like Gwen was only calling to her voice full of sunshine and joy and unshakable determination. And we get that Gwen's voice is described as, quote, it was like a ray of pure light piercing and summoning. More light imagery when it comes to Gwen. And which can mean something in the Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks section, which we might talk about. But I also feel like in this moment, it's like a light at the end of the tunnel. And I also find it to be very uncanny because Amy has described me singing in a very similar way.
Yeah, definitely. Especially at karaoke.
Exactly.
Now, unwittingly, Nesta goes into a meditative state while she listens to the music of the service, and in the process, she begins to scry for the harp. It's probably also intentional that the music she's listening to has a harp playing. Quote, the harp still strumming, voices whispering and flowing, lulling Nesta down, down, down into a pure, ancient place where no outside world existed, no time, nothing but the music in her bones, the stones at her feet, her side overhead. And it's in this scrying that Nesta is taken to the prison and sees the harp, and the harp speaks to her and foreshadows all its uses that will become important for Nesta later on when she and Cassian are in the prison. Quote, we shall open doorways and pathways. We shall move through space and eons together. Our music will free us of earthly rules and borders.
Great job.
Thank you.
Fantastic job.
Thank you.
It is very clever writing to have a harp here, and then for Nesta's own bones and stones, and like she's the bones and then the stones surrounding it. Like it was a very well done, I would say.
I agree. After this revelation, Nesta goes to Cassian and Cassian goes to Rhys. And Cassian tells Rhys about Nesta's scrying experience, at which point Rhys decides he's going to make Cassian and Nesta not only go to the prison, but also to take the maid greatsword with them. Now notice how, in Cassian's point of view, Rhys's title comes into play. Quote, take it with you, his High Lord said quietly. I want to see what happens if Nesta uses it. A visit to the prison isn't the time for one of your experiments, Cassian countered. I just love Cassian, who isn't willing to just sit back when Rhys High Lord comes in and is conniving and manipulative and has ulterior motives, at least where Nesta is concerned. It just warms my little heart.
He still does it, though. Like, that is the thing where Cassian doesn't stick up enough for Nesta many times, and he does do what Rhys says many times. The quote goes on a little bit longer, but the first part of the quote, I was like, like, this is kind of a peace offering. And then I was like, no, Rhys. Rhys is like testing this on her. And it's a icky moment because it's like a combination of, is this like a peace offering of some way, saying like, hey, like you made it, you get to use it. Like, this is where all of our issues kind of came from. Like, you could really much see this as a peace offering. And maybe Cassian saying, like, you don't get to make her an experiment, and Rhys responded the way he did just because, like, it's too complicated for him to say, I feel bad. You know what I mean? Like, it could be. So I struggled with this, like, how I view Rhys in this moment, because I can see it going both ways.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, because I could also see it as him being protective of, like, well, shit, the Dread Trove is in the prison. The prison's already dangerous enough, but to your point, doesn't know how to apologize to Nesta, so I'm gonna let her experiment with it, and that's my apology.
Well, I feel like giving it back is his apology. Letting her experiment at the prison is dangerous and puts her life at risk. And that's where it's like, oh, you shouldn't be experimenting with that. But at the same time, it could be him being like, I actually have more faith in her ability.
Yeah.
We don't know. We're not in his head.
No.
We're going to take a sip.
Moving on to chapter 53. When Nesta first sets foot on the prison's island, she thinks about the wrongness of the place. And in doing so, she recalls Feyre's own stories about going to the prison. Quote, little frightened, her sister, that Feyre found it to be petrifying didn't help the twisting sensation in Nesta's gut. First of all, ironic, I just re-listened to ACOTAR episode 1, our very first episode ever, and we talk about how Feyre's afraid all the time, and she's just like, well, gosh darn, I just gotta push through.
Yeah. Yeah, she is. It is. She's like, oh, damn it, I'm afraid again. Well,
I don't really have a choice.
No options.
This quote, though, despite the irony, I read it almost as Nesta admiring Feyre for always being brave. And what's nice about it is that Nesta doesn't resent herself for not protecting Feyre. She's just admiring Feyre for her bravery, which I appreciate, and is a little sign of growth. Now, being in the prison also makes Nesta think of Amren, and maybe for the first time, Nesta feels empathy toward Amren. Of all people, honestly, she's a better person than me. Quote, she didn't know how Amren hadn't gone mad, how she'd found the strength to survive. She'd treated Amren badly. The small thought wedged into her mind. She had used her, exactly as Amren said, as a shield against everyone. And Amren, who had survived millennia in this awful place alongside the worst monsters in the land, Amren found her abhorrent. Misery burned like acid. I get it. I get being empathetic, but I also don't get it because did Nesta use Amren? I don't know.
I struggle with this because did Nesta irrationally lash out at Amren? Yeah, saying like, you sided with Feyre, all you want to do is be with Feyre. Like, yes, like I'm not saying that Nesta didn't lash out for like the dumbest reason.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Amren did Nesta so dirty. She flat out admitted that she kept Nesta isolated for months after her dad died, thinking that it was her for her own good, but still isolated. Nesta didn't get to make that call. That call was taken from her. Maybe Nesta would have made a different call if she was being surrounded by people who wanted to be there for her, right? But I feel like maybe, and I'm hoping, I don't think this is what it is, but hopeful maybe this is a way of like accepting Amren and why she is the way she is. Like maybe Nesta's understanding that Amren won't grow. It's the fact that Nesta points out that she was there for like 15,000 years or like a long ass time.
Yeah, thousands, whatever.
Yeah, that I think that it's very much a reflection of like, look, she's kind of set in her ways. And whatever little change is huge change for her. I don't think that's what it is because I think Nesta's taking too much brunt of the blame here. But, you know, I do be trying for this moment. Nesta and Cassian find the place where the harp is, and Nesta describes the room as having, quote, raised symbols carved into the floor cast shadows against the crimson light. The entire round chamber was full of them. It almost is like a church, but for me, it's like a bloody church because it's crimson light. And it's such a contrast from where the priestesses were and they were singing that it was like simple and golden and light. And here it is ornate and with symbols and it's crimson. So I just kind of found that to be a good little contrast. And Nesta's about to go inside, but before she goes inside, they're holding hands, her and Cassian. And it's just sweet that they're holding hands. And she's telling him like, no, I got to go inside alone. And quote, he squeezed her hand, calluses rubbed against her own. I love this because she's talked about his calluses before, but now she gets to say that she has them too, and they're becoming equals.
It's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Now, against Cassian's will, Nesta is determined to go into the chamber with the harp, and Cassian tries to stop her. Quote, his throat bobbed. I can't risk you. The words slammed into her heart. You have to. Before he could object further, she said, you're training me to be a warrior, yet you'd keep me from danger? How is that any better than a caged animal? First of all, he is vulnerable. I can't risk you. And that hits Nesta hard. But her defense against his feelings and quite frankly her own, and I think she's right to say this, is to remind him that he can't keep her caged. He's not going to be able to protect her all of the time. And what I think is great here that I think old Nesta would not have been able to do, she says it without malice. And because she says it without malice, Cassian is able to agree and let her go, despite his mate instincts being like, no, I must protect.
We have someone spamming our account right now on one of our social accounts, and they keep saying like, Cassian never once showed any kind of love. And I just want to be like, okay, sure.
Okay. This isn't love at all.
No love. None at all.
I believe, unlike that person, that this shows their growing trust in each other. And honestly, Cassian's belief in her that, okay, I've been training you, you can do this. And all of this is set up for the end of the novel, right? The last act, aka the blood rite. So SJM doing her thing. Lean into the white ribbon, guys. Lean into the fact that Nesta can do this on her own with a maid sword.
Leaned.
When the harp begins to speak to Nesta, it calls her sister. Quote, Nesta chilled at the word it had used, sister. Like she and this thing were one and the same. I have no basis for this, but I like to think Nesta's creeped out because she actually deep down likes her sisters and doesn't like the idea of the maid object equating itself to one of them.
It's kind of like a nice sobering moment where she's like, no, I don't want you. I've got other fucked up sisters. They're mine. When Nesta gets the harp and she gets out, Cassian is understandably very worried about her. Quote, he only surveyed her for any signs of harm. It was as intimate as any look he'd ever given her. Because my note is people think he doesn't show love. But what I love about this moment is because no one has really looked at her like this before, with that pure concern of, are you okay? Her mother never really looked at her like that, with that worry. And I do believe Farah has, I do believe Elaine has, but I think that Nesta kind of glazes over them. I think when it comes to Farah, she especially glazes over any kind of looks of concern there. And, you know, I think this is one of the first times that she's like recognized someone being concerned for her.
I agree. And that's why it feels intimate. Now, because of that intimacy, even though they're in a dark and scary place, Nesta and Cassian think about sex. And honestly, I get it.
Yeah.
Quote, her cheeks heated, something like pleasure going through her, that he would pick her, them, that he wanted the reassurance of her body that much. These crazy kids, their physical intimacy is also emotional intimacy. Wow. And then they followed up with an actual verbal, emotionally intimate moment by admitting that they've always been friends. And it's beautiful.
I get into that quote more.
I'll let you talk about it, but I just want to say classic SJM, interrupting emotional intimacy with danger, which in a lot of ways makes the intimacy even stronger.
Yeah. I mean, Nesta's opening up to his attachment, right? Because it all comes down to sex with them. It's a safe way for her to open up to that bittersweet moment that Amy was just talking about. And it's this realization that Nesta has, quote, but she rose onto her toes and kissed him lightly. He blinked with almost comic shock as she pulled away. What was that for? Nesta shrugged, her cheeks heating. Gwen and Emery are my friends, she said quietly. But, she swallowed, I think you might be too, Cassian. Like, yeah, he's her friend. I mean, SJM loves making her FMCs and MMCs friends, you know? And I think she does a good job of, like, if there's anything that I think that SJM does well, is, well, I might tease her saying, like, no one is, like, really friends because they want to fuck from the beginning. You can't say that's, like, friendship. But I think what SJM does well compared to a lot of other books is that I believe the characters like each other. That if there wasn't a crazy emotional sexual moment between them, they would be friends, that they actually would get along. When I think about other books where it feels like it's just pure heated the entire time, I'm going to say a book and people might be pissed off at me, but like Fourth Wing.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
I'm sure when you go back and read, there could be like these like funny, cute moments, but you know, it just doesn't give me the same like they'd be friends. Like if they were never mates or whatever, you know, if that never happened, I truly believe Nesta and Cassian would be friends if they weren't mates. And I don't think the same with Violet and Violet. Yeah.
They're either fighting or fucking.
Yeah, it's so true. What I also would like to point out here is that I think Nesta, I don't want to say is confused. I think she's just discovering forms of emotional intimacy. And I think the fact that she has these new female friendships who are truly her friends for the first time. I think Amryn was a friend, but Amryn did her dirty. I think for the first time she's had real friendship with Emery and Gwen, and that's allowing her to see the other forms of emotional intimacy which she finds in Cassian.
I agree with you. I actually think Amryn wasn't a friend because Amryn says, were we even friends? I think because Amryn was never vulnerable.
Agreed.
Friendship requires vulnerability.
Yeah. If you do friendship, I don't want to say right because I don't want to say that we're right, but like maybe we are. But I feel like if you do your face,
smug.
I feel like when you're close to someone, and it's whether your best friend, your partner, your family, when you are so emotionally vulnerable, it no longer is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You strip away the vulnerability. I would not describe any conversation I have with you as emotionally vulnerable.
No.
It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
That I will bare my soul and deepest fears to, but like that's just a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Take a sip.
We're going to move now into chapter 54, and we start in Cassian's point of view. We see his fear for Nesta and his determination to ensure that she lives, even if it means that he dies. The thought, quote, clarified his mind, cooled and sharpened his fear into another weapon. Not only is his body a weapon, his mind is a weapon, which is sexy. However, Nesta, not so clear-headed right now. Quote, he needed her primed to run, not rooted to the spot like a deer. It's probably the only time Nesta's compared to a deer, unlike her sisters. I just thought that was worth pointing out.
I think so.
Now, scent is important to the Fae, and I think it has been a little bit downplayed in this book for obvious reasons, aka mates, but we do see it weaponized in this scene. Quote, Lanthis inhaled. What are you? A witch, she breathed, from Orid's dark heart. There's a name I've not heard in a long while. Lanthis continues later, quote, your scent, he sighed. Pity you've marred such a scent with Cassian's stink. I can barely distinguish anything on you besides his essence. Nice little breadcrumb for the mate stuff. But also, I like to think that this is also Cassian protecting Nesta, because his scent is protecting her from Lanthis truly understanding the extent of Nesta's power, her association with the cauldron, etc.
It's just so funny because Nesta talks about like how Cassian's come in her, on her chest, on her back, everywhere. And like his essence is basically his cum, I can't distinguish anything on you besides his cum. And I can just be like, honey, I'm gonna have to hose you down later tonight to keep you hidden.
That reminds me, I had this conversation earlier today with Emma. So Emma's really into perfume, and there's this one perfumery that's really gimmicky that creates perfumes that smell like bodily fluids, one of which is in fact semen. I can't even imagine. I don't
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Because people will buy it just to smell it, just to be like, does this actually smell like semen?
I don't know. No, Amy, no.
It was relevant.
It is, and I'm horrified. Is this in New York? Is there one in New York?
No, I think it's an online only.
Thank God. Is there a perfumery that she wants to go to in New York?
Maybe.
All right, I'd be down. I mean, I'm down for everything, but she fascinates me.
Now, Cassian orders Nesta to run, and so she listens, but then she realizes, actually, he might not live and actually follow me out of here. Quote, a cold bolt shot through her heart. She had run from him, left him. I like the proximity of this to being compared to a deer. In a lot of ways, she's metaphorically being killed, the deer in her is being killed, but it's at the thought of leaving him behind, which is romantic. Her need to get to Cassian and be with him makes her use her magic, and she doesn't even think twice about it. She doesn't even
Magic
think.
Or the harp's magic.
She summons her flames. Quote, Nesta didn't think. She seized that silver fire within her, let it wreathe her hands.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And then she attacks this is with the Autumn Court soldiers, not with Lanthis.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I just want to point out she's come so far, even since the Bog of Orid. Like, she's not afraid of her magic anymore.
So true.
And it's because Cassian.
Yeah.
And I love the symmetry of this scene with Lanthis and its counterpart at the end of Wings and Ruin. Quote, Nesta had been here before, had been in this exact position, Cassian's head on her lap, death laughing at them. Then she had curled over him and waited to die. Then she had stopped fighting. She would not fail this time. The mist pressed in, and she could have sworn she felt a hand reach for her. It was enough to set her moving. Drawing her sword in the same movement with which she shot to her feet, Nesta slashed a perfect combination. Again, she's come so far. She's not giving in to fear. She's using her training. And also another moment, SJM's asking us to believe in Nesta's growth so that we believe the blood right later.
I'm on board. When Nesta sees Lanthus, and she starts to kind of like poke at him, and he goes into his physical form. And I love the description. Quote, "A naked, golden-haired male stood before her. He was of average height, his golden skin sculpted with muscle, his sharp-boned face simmering with hate. Not a repulsive, awful creature, but one of beauty." I really love the contrast between average and beauty. You know, like, he's golden haired, he's got muscles, but he's also average height. And I feel like that's going to be everything that we're going to get in the next couple of examples with Lanthus, is that you get this like really, fluffy thing, and then you have all this other stuff.
Mediocre.
Yeah, finally we're getting 5'10" male representation, or who's probably a 5'9" if they're being honest. It's just really surprising seeing Pierce Brown inside this now. If anyone doesn't follow us on Instagram, or I don't know if we mentioned it anywhere else, there was a Pierce Brown event. I wanted to go see how tall he was, and I forced Amy.
It was not a Pierce Brown event. It was a debut male fantasy author, and Pierce Brown was moderating.
Yeah. And it just so happened that we lucked out, and I was standing right at the walkway that he was coming in, and I made sure to wear my flattest shoes. And we can confirm that he is a generous 5'10", a generous 5'9", a soft 5'10".
Yes. Yeah.
Lanthus.
Now, Lanthus does become intimidated with Nesta as she flips the sword around and chooses that moment to focus again on her identity. Quote, "Which death god are you?" Lanthus asked again. "Who are you beneath that flesh?" "I'm nobody," she snapped. This is said in passing, but I actually feel like this moment has a lot of layers, because Nesta truly believes that she is no one. Like, for all her pride, compared to Feyre, Nesta feels like no one. She feels like nobody wants her. Nobody will accept her. She is no one to herself. And her insignificance is in a lot of ways conveyed in this one sentence.
Yeah.
But because we're in the middle of a battle, we don't pay attention to it.
I also love that she does the little sword flippy thing, and she says that it's something that she's seen Cassian do when he just kind of has like extra energy, and it's actually intimidating to Lanthus. And I love that she's channeling Cassian in that moment to be intimidating. Very much so. We've seen her channel Cassian in other situations as well. Lanthus' vision that he gives Nesta is great because there are so many tells in here. Quote, "The harp sat behind them on an altar, the mask too, but the golden crown wasn't there. It rested atop Lanthus' head." So in this vision, her and Lanthus are sitting on top of their thrones, but Lanthus is the one with the crown. He is still in charge. He can't, even in this vision that he's trying to tempt her with, he's still like, he doesn't know how to make a sale. And he's just like, but I'm in charge. And everything about his vision is super shady. Quote, "Such pleasure. She had never known such pleasure with anyone. Only he could fuck her like this, diving so deep, her body warm and supple and wet for him. And soon his seed would take root in her womb, and the child she would bear him would rule entire universes." And again, it's like starts with her pleasure, and it's, "Baby, you've never felt a dick like mine before." And it's like, listen, soft 5 inches, okay? Like, let's not. If you're used to catching print, he's probably an 8 cup. And for people who have no idea what I just said, look it up on TikTok. But ultimately, it starts off with her quote unquote pleasure, but it ends with breeding her, with using her womb as a way for his offspring to rule everything.
Because it's got to be about him and his seed.
She's busy being covered with another man's seed. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The cauldron demands a brief intermission. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
Amy, we were just in New York for BookCon, and did you notice that all of the New York girlies were wearing Quince?
You're so right. They were stylish, street appropriate, but also business casual.
It's amazing how I was spotting some of Quince's staple pieces on the street. I can always spot one of their Mongolian cashmeres from a mile away because it's always so soft and so nice. Quince really spends time on making sure they give you the best quality clothing they can with premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim.
Their styles make getting dressed simpler. They make me feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together with tops that start at just $30. You can't beat that for work.
Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup.
Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk.
Now, Nesta and Cassian team up to take down Lanthus. Lanthus doesn't realize Cassian's back on his feet and is able to stab Lanthus, and then Nesta comes in and decapitates him with Ataraxia. Quote, Ataraxia sang the heart song of the wind as it whipped through the air. So Ataraxia sings to Nesta, which A, Nesta loves music, so fabulous. B, it's also a lot like when Nesta feels powerful, whether she's got an item of the Dread Trove or her own inner power, she talks about it being a song in her blood. And this very much is an extension of that. And, you know, who else is compared to wind all the time? It's Cassian and Nesta. And it's like, this is them at their best, their essence together. Pew, pew. However, after killing Lanthus, it's not a 100% victory for Nesta. Quote, what could not be killed had been slain. Somehow, a small part of her delighted in it, even as the rest of her trembled. I like to think of this as a reminder that the human in Nesta is not completely gone. That's the part of her that trembles. She knows fear and is fearful of what it means to kill. But the Fae in her is like, yeah, I did that.
Yes, girl.
Lydia.
Let's take a sip. If no one knows what Amy just referenced, it's from the Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
Hopefully you've been listening to Academia Unlocked.
And if you haven't, why?
Please.
Why do you hate us?
Please do.
Please do. You don't even have to pay attention. You can just put it on in the background.
Put it on mute.
Put it on mute. It's fine. Give us 5 stars. It's not that hard. I wonder if other podcasts beg like this.
No, I don't know. I guess it requires a certain level of humility, right? Please.
I like the spin you gave this. Like, we're just so humble, guys. We're just so humble that we're willing to beg. Please, Daddy.
Who are you talking to?
The listeners.
That's fair.
So I wore my good girl shirt to the gym today, and I always forget when I wear my good girl shirt out, someone is always going to see, it's always a man, they go, I'm a good boy, or they're like, good girl. And it's always like the most awkward, but like I don't get, like there was this one guy who was like, good girl, but he wasn't being like good girl, but he was like, good girl. I was like, and he goes, your shirt, good girl.
It's like, honestly, it's like, I don't mean this to be as mean as it sounds.
No, go ahead.
But it's like, they're like, oh, that's what I say to a dog. Good girl.
Yeah.
Or
no,
a cat.
It's true. I mean, the last time someone said it was like, I'm a good boy. But granted, they might have been homeless and unwell.
Oh.
However, and it's funny because I did wear that shirt particularly but wanted to see. There was a specific gym guy there that he was not there today. It was upsetting. Not really. I don't care. It's all in my head. All right. Did we take a sip already?
We did. Would you like to take another?
No, I'm ready.
All right. We are now in chapter 55, and the chapter starts with Rhys fussing over Cassian. Quote, it's a small cut. Stop fussing. Your skull was cracked and your arm was broken. You're grounded for a few days. You can't be serious. Oh, I most certainly am. Rhys is taking on the role of mother hen while Feyre watches stoically from the side. And A, role reversal. B, I think Rhys, because he can't take care of Feyre, can't solve the problem of her pregnancy, he's got to fuss around Cassian in order to feel worthy.
Bok, motherfucker. Bok, bok. Bok, bok. That's, he's really elevated from a sexy chicken lingerie shop to a sexy chicken healthcare system here. Sexy chicken is really branching out here.
Yeah.
Which hospital are you going to? Sexy Chicken. They have the best, they mother hen you the whole time.
They're a conglomerate now. They own multiple holding companies.
They really do. They haven't been the same since they sold out to Big Chicken. Stock. Their stock number or lettering is EIEIO. If there's any international people, that's Old MacDonald had a farm, EIEIO.
I can't handle the clever today.
I didn't know you'd approve. It was honestly hit or miss. It was honestly really dodgy. I was like, I'm just sitting here waiting for you to be like, you idiot. I got a clever, guys. I'll take it.
Yeah. That's going to be your new ringtone on my phone.
EIEIO. LLC. Okay. So getting back to this farmhouse, Nesta finally sees Feyre, and she's struggling to verbalize her apology, so she mentally spirals. Quote, she prayed that her sister could read the silent words on her face. I'm sorry for what I said to you in Amren's apartment. I am truly sorry. Feyre's eyes softened, and then, to Nesta's shock, Feyre answered into her mind, don't worry about it. I mean, it's great because she definitely projected her thoughts into Feyre's mind. I don't know the rules of this world, and sometimes I wonder if anyone does. Because she said I prayed, I wonder if like that's part of her own ability. Like I don't know if someone were to just be in their head being like Feyre, if they could hear, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because I don't know those rules, but it was the like she prayed. I'm like, how much of it did you have to do with this?
Yeah,
but,
I mean, what if praying is like attempting a mental bridge?
But I love this because the mind to mind, it's the only way for it to happen. And, you might be like, oh, she doesn't say it out loud, so she doesn't mean it, or it doesn't mean as much. But I find it to be more emotionally intimate because Nesta didn't even know she was doing it. And it was probably the most honest, raw, emotional, like, umph that she's given mentally that she would never have been able to say physically.
Completely agree. She was nervous about telling Cassian that they're friends. This woman cannot articulate any feelings. And for her to do it in the safety of her own mind, because of course classic Nesta forgot that Feyre has Daemati gifts, is, to your point, really the only way that they could communicate. And it's safe for Feyre to communicate that way too, because they've never communicated to each other this way. There's no bad association with them communicating this way. And I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Feyre hears the words and, we get her reaction, quote, Feyre's pause was considerable. Then she said the words like the first rays of dawn, I forgive you. Feyre being associated with dawn, a new beginning, is huge for Nesta. And like I said earlier in this episode, it is really the catalyst for all of these other new beginnings that Nesta's going to give to herself. And that is going to the cottage, and the fire.
Now, during the conversation that's taking place, it's Rhys, Feyre, Cassian, Nesta. They talk about the Autumn Court soldiers appearing at the prison, and Cassian gets really down on himself for not believing Eris the last time they talked, when Eris is like, I had more soldiers than you saw at the Bog of Orid. Now, Nesta wants to comfort Cassian, but isn't necessarily comfortable doing so in front of Rhys and Feyre. That's my assumption about why she doesn't do it. But then Feyre speaks up to comfort Cassian and is like, any of us would have made the same mistake. And I love that this is what Nesta thinks, and I think it's only because Feyre and Nesta have reconciliated. Quote, Nesta could have hugged her sister for the relief that bowed Cassian's shoulders upon hearing her words. For all his arrogance, the opinions of his friends, his family mattered deeply. None of them would ever chide him for failure, but he'd punish himself for it. Nesta brushed her fingers against Cassian's in silent understanding. His own curled against hers, meeting her stare as if to say, see, we're the same after all. I just love that Nesta feels closer to Feyre because they both love Cassian and want him to feel better.
Yeah.
And I love that Cassian and Nesta can truly see themselves in each other and that they are the same in a lot of ways. It's just a beautiful moment.
It is. The team starts talking about Eris and that they need him more fully on their side. So Rhys gives Nesta a task. Quote, I want you to seduce him, Rhys said. Not into bed, but to make him realize what he might attain once he understands that we have no plans to break this alliance. Rhys is using the story about how Nesta seduced the Duke. Granted, seduced is a very weird term because she was a child, and he wants her to do the same thing now. And again, it starts to be a little gray lines at first. Like, I think the initial reaction might be like, Rhys, you dick. How dare you ask a woman to use her own sexuality like this? And he does his classic thing, like, only if you want to, which I feel like he does that just to kind of get away with things. But the fact that Nesta agrees, I think there is something to it that makes me not think Rhys as much of a dick. Because again, I find Rhys and Nesta to kind of be on the same wavelength. So why does Nesta agree? Well, maybe she feels guilty to Rhys and she's like, I'll do whatever. But I also feel like maybe this is her place, her way of finding a place in the court. And I think she does want to help. And I feel like it's not necessarily Rhys being a dick and saying, hello, woman, go use your womanly ways. It's like, he already said that she's a good courtier. He already said that she knows what she's doing. And he's giving her an actual job that I think that she could thrive with.
Yeah, I completely agree. She admits early on in the book that she felt like she was becoming part of the inner circle before the end of the war. And then the war ended and she spiraled, right? Because she was the only one that was suffering. I think deep down, Nesta likes being part of the collective, right? She likes being a team with Gwyn and Emery. She likes being helpful to this group, even if she can't fully admit it to herself or to anyone else. And I think that Rhys entrusting her with an important task makes Nesta feel like she has value. She is not insignificant. She has something to contribute, and that's what she's needed. She failed with the magic, all these other ways that she's failed, but she just succeeded in the prison with the made weapon. And now she's being entrusted with another thing that she feels confident she could succeed in because she's confident in her ability to dance. So I think that all has to do with it. And I think Rhys knows that. I also love the fact that Nesta agrees to it to quote unquote spite Cassian for being territorial, because he was being protective of her again, being like, no, she's not going to do that. You can't do that. And she's like, no, I already told you, you can't cage me like an animal. So watch me do it. It's so them.
We then get a break in the chapter and we're with Nesta and she's meditating, quote, but her mind did not shoot in every direction. It remained calm, resting, content right where it was. So she's meditating and there's a bunch of different thoughts coming in, and these are all of her old toxic thoughts coming at her way, and she just kind of dismisses it and tucks them aside. And it's such an important small snippet that we have here because we are seeing her on her growth, but this isn't just growth that's happening. This is growth that she's seeking. And we have to have this moment because of what is about to happen. And sure enough, the very next scene / line, quote, war had left the cottage untouched, but the harsh winter since Nesta had last seen it had not been so kind. And that is Nesta and Cassian going to her old cottage to Nesta's request. And she decides that she wants just Cassian there. And, you know, she keeps being like, I don't know why I asked him. This is such a mystery to me. But, you know, girl, she's trying, okay? She's healing so much already. We can't ask her to be a genius here. So it's a really great moment you can see her like really collecting herself and gathering herself before she makes this leap to the cottage.
Which is beautiful. And Nesta can only go so far. As Jack said, quote, she had no idea why she'd asked Cassian to come here with her, really. Maybe because you admitted you're friends? Maybe because you don't like being alone?
Yeah.
Or because, like on the mountain, she's learning to face her truth. And he was with her the last time she did that, right? On the mountain. And the other thing that is like when they were on the mountain hike, going to the lake, we see the sun come in as a metaphor once again. Quote, the midday autumn sun made the disrepair all the more stark. It's because she's facing it. She's facing the truth with open eyes.
I'm not going to lie. There was a moment where I'm like, do they have sex in the cottage? And I was like, oh, thank God they don't. Okay.
No, it's so dirty.
Wait, I like that your concern is like it's dirty, but I'm like the emotional trauma that's happened there.
I was like, but the animal droppings.
Look, it didn't stop them in the forest. What do you think the forest is? It's one giant animal dropping. It's called wilderness. The forest lake. The lake is in the forest.
I thought it was on a like, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Surrounded by forests. Are there or are there not trees?
I don't remember there being trees. Why else would she get sun?
It's a clearing.
Okay.
They got to be surrounded by something. Wilderness. The overall description of this area is absolutely fantastic. Quote, no humans wandered the leaf-strewn road beyond the cottage. Only a few birds chirped, a half-hearted melody from the almost barren trees. SJM using birds and the lack of people to show that this place has no hope. I wouldn't say little hope, because there is still a melody playing. There is still nature there. Nature has overrun this entire cottage. It's just a sad place.
It is a sad place. Or at least it is seen through the lens of sadness, right? Because somebody else could be like, oh, it looks sad, but a few birds are chirping. There is hope, right?
Elaine?
Is
that you?
It's all about perspective. I do want to continue that quote because I also underlined that because I thought it was a beautiful description. Quote, muted, drab, and empty. That was how this land felt, even with autumn upon it, as if even the sun couldn't be bothered to shine properly here. Muted, drab, empty. In a lot of ways, we could argue that that's how Nesta felt about her human life, especially after the events with her father and the debtors. I think it's also important with the use of the sun that we're seeing Nesta couldn't face the truth when she was a human. And in a lot of ways, couldn't face the truth of her humanity, that this was a miserable place. And I'll argue this a little bit later, but when she first becomes High Fae, she's like, you did this to me, how, blah, blah. And it's like, girl, your life wasn't that great.
I know.
As a human. And, she's kind of being forced to see that right now.
Nesta's not someone who likes life happening to her. And we saw that also in book 1, ACOTAR, where after Pharaoh was taken and then their dad's riches suddenly came back, like the ships are there and they became rich. And Nesta wasn't happy with it. Granted, I mean, her sister was taken essentially, but life happened to her. Nesta historically does not like being a passive observer in her own life.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Nesta is struggling with what she's seen all around, and not only does it bring up bad memories, but it also confirms just how bad things were for them. And she can't say anything out loud. I mean, Cassian has to point like the dinner table because did you eat there? She just nods. And so like she doesn't even give any answers until he points out the paintings on the wall. Quote, Nesta swallowed and managed to get out. She painted every chance she got. Any extra coin she managed to save went towards paints. The very first thing that Nesta says in this general area, in this cottage, has to do with Farah. And I think that it's both a sign of understanding of what Farah has gone through, and she's going to admit in a moment that she failed Farah. But I think that it's also a way of her gathering strength, right? Like of channeling Farah, that Farah was strong enough during this time of poverty to try to find beauty in painting.
Beautiful.
Nesta keeps saying that she doesn't know why she brought Cassian. Meanwhile, we get this line, quote, Cassian stood beside her through all of it, not speaking, not touching, just there. Should she need him, her friend, whom she'd asked to come with her, not because he was sharing her bed, but because she wanted him there, his steadiness and kindness and understanding. Another note. And people say he doesn't show love for her. Stop spamming us. Nesta reminds Cassian of the reprimand that he gave her when they first met. And she was like, you basically called me a useless piece of shit. And he was like, I did no such thing. And she says, quote, the message was the same. She squared her shoulders, turning to the small broken cot and the shadows beyond the fireplace. And you were right. Nesta is admitting to her faults. She's apologized to Farah. So what's so great about her coming to this cottage is that it's not just about like, wow, my life was so hard, but wow, I was that horrible in so many ways. And it is shameful for her to not just see how poor they were, but to remind herself of who she was when she lived there. And we see that when Nesta talks about the bed that her and her sister slept on while her dad slept on the cot. Quote, it never occurred to me that he wanted us to have the bed. And that's because Nesta doesn't understand a parent's love or love in general. She's learning this. And I'm not saying that Elaine and Farah don't love Nesta. I'm saying that none of them have been raised to learn how to express love in a healthy way or to learn and accept healthy love, aka Farah in A Court of Thorns and Roses accepting Tamlin's love. Like we literally talked about Farah not knowing love and just accepting any love. And that's why Tamlin was such a big, important role for her. So why wouldn't the same thing be true to Nesta? Why wouldn't it make sense that Nesta doesn't understand love? Let's give her a break.
I completely agree. And that really stood out to me in this scene, which I think I say later. I can't remember. But what I want to talk about in the context of this quote that you just read, Nesta says, quote, I always thought he looked so weak, like a cowering animal. It enraged me. I thought him sleeping here was a fitting punishment while we got the bed. Nesta's calling out her unreliability, right? Her perspective is a warped perspective, and her feelings and inner dialogue stop her from seeing the good intentions of others, which really speaks to the beginning of this book. We see all of the inner circle's actions through this lens of someone who is angry and spiteful, and especially in the context of others trying to be helpful or do what's best for her. She will always see help as having malicious intent. She sees love as, in a lot of ways, weakness. And that's the Nesta we got at the start of this novel. And the fact that she's able to recognize that now shows how far she's come.
Yep. Nesta says why she thinks her father gave up on life after their mother passed and after they lost their fortune. Quote, people told him he was mad, but he refused to listen. And when they were proven right, I think that humiliation broke him. And that's in regards to the gamble he made in an investment. And it's just a reminder of how similar Nesta and her father were. Yeah, because he's dead. How similar they are. And that's, I think, part of the reason why she stays angry at him and at everything, right? But it also got me thinking about, like, that this is why Nesta stays angry at everything, because it'd be like proving her wrong at things.
No, you have a really good point.
Yeah. It got me thinking that it's why Nesta stays angry at everything. I remember typing it and being like, I have a further thought to like prove it. Now I can't remember what that thought was.
It's right here.
Hey, there it is. Thank you. Oh, thank God. Nesta and her father are very similar. That humiliation is what hurts Nesta extra. Nesta's anger kept her going. Her father wasn't angry, just broken, and he did not thrive. Nesta being angry is a form of fighting of some kind. It is opposite of her father. Not saying that it's a healthy way for her to cope, but it's the way that she needed to live in order to survive. So letting go of the anger is almost letting go of the will to live, because her father gave up on anger and the will to live.
Yeah, which I think is very compelling.
Oh, I'm so happy I did write that down and I just didn't look a little farther. Thank you.
So why ultimately did Nesta feel like she needed to go back to the cottage one last time? Quote, I think I just needed to see this place one last time to know we got out, that there's nothing left here except dust and bad memories. So like I said, being turned eye Fae pissed Nesta off and she resented Feyre for that outcome and the trauma of it. But coming back to the cottage is a reminder that being human was just as traumatic. And in a lot of ways, kind of like there's so many parallels right now to A Court of Thorns and Roses with Feyre. The cottage is a reminder of resilience, right? Feyre saw the cottage as a prison. Elaine saw it as a place where they were safe. And Feyre learned from Elaine in that process. And here, Nesta realizes that it was a place she hated, that maybe being human wasn't all it was cracked up to be. But I think it's also a reminder for her, even though she might not articulate it, that she's endured. And the fact that she's able to come back and see it is another proof of her endurance and that she can do hard things and come out the other side, which is why she's going to then approach fire next. And I love the parting image before the chapter ends. Quote, Cassian gave her a wicked smile, opening that half-broken door for her, leading her into the sunlight and clean air. Sun associated with truth and mates and healing.
Yeah. It means Elaine is going to have to eventually have a going back to the cottage moment, because Feyre and ACOTAR went back to the cottage. And now Nesta.
Insert sponsored subplot here. When I moved in with my partner is when I realized how much effort she puts into her skincare. She spends so much time and money just on what she puts on her skin. But the one thing she doesn't invest in is our bedding.
Well, that's because you're now investing in it with Boll and Branch.
From their organic cotton sheets to their breathable pillows and comforters, Boll and Branch makes their bedding with ultra clean materials that are gentle on the skin and free from harsh chemicals.
Boll and Branch really feels like my first grown-up sheets, and you can really feel the difference with their signature sheet sets. Remember, these sheets are touching you for up to 8 hours every single night. You're going to want to have the best sheets possible. Have you noticed that the pockets of the fitted sheets are perfect for forming around the mattress?
This is the first set of sheets that I haven't had to help my partner put them on the bed because the pockets are too small. They are so easy to get on the bed.
These are honestly the first pair of sheets that I have that I don't wake up with my sheets halfway wrapped around me. They are durable, they are soft, and the longer you use them, the softer they become.
Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/booktalk with code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/BOOKTALK, and use code BOOKTALK to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. We are now in chapter 56, and we get a nice little time jump of a month. It's cold, Nesta's practicing, and she is seeing changes in herself. Quote, Nesta had to switch into another size of leathers, and when she looked in the mirror each morning to braid her hair, the face that stared back had lost its gauntness. The shadows beneath the eyes, even with Cassian fucking her on every surface of the house, sometimes until the early hours of the morning, the exhaustion, the purple bruises under her eyes had vanished. I was like, physical appearance does matter in a healthy way sometimes, guys. it matters when you can see the progression of your own health and gaining that health back. And it's showing that, she's getting bigger, she's getting healthier, she's getting stronger. And before, at the beginning of this book, she couldn't face herself. And now she's having to face her own reflection every single day and is forced to see her own progression and growth.
Which is very reminiscent of Feyre in A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yep.
Nesta, unfortunately, is a sucker, or I should say glutton for punishment. She just doesn't know how to enjoy a good thing. Quote, she told herself it didn't matter that Cassian never stayed in her bed afterward to hold her. She wondered when he'd grow tired of her. Surely he'd get bored and move on, even if he feasted on her each night as if he were starving.
Judging your beginning of your note, why can't that bitch just shut up and enjoy a good thing? Just get eaten out and let him leave, babe. Don't even worry about it.
No, it's more of he's eating you out like he's starving. Maybe he just never wants to leave. Whatever. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's funny because in chapter 57, Cassian has this exact same thought. She just never asks me to stay, even though we fuck like animals.
Well, the thing is, neither of them are willing to do the I fell asleep thing. You just kind of all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe Nesta can be like, let's have sex in your room. And then he goes to he just moves and then she's just asleep.
I find the fact that she's also, he feasts on me like he's starving. I'm worried he's going to get bored. She's in a position of power here.
Yeah.
Yet she feels vulnerable. She worries that she's unworthy.
I get it, though, because the question ends up being, how long can this keep going?
Yeah.
What happens when a starving person knows that the meal is going to be there?
Yeah.
The next meal is there. Because, it ends up being are you treating me this way because you think it's going to end and you're just trying to take every last moment? And, this isn't sustainable. This type of ration, we're going to fuck I'm not going to see you another time. That's not we're going to be together for 500 years.
Yeah.
Energy,
Or is it? Because that's how Feyre and Rhys are.
Yeah. When are we going to get comfortable? Not that they're not horny for each other, but I don't know. Feyre and Rhys are horny for each other, but I don't know if we see that desperation in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. So Nesta and Mor are at their dance lessons, and it's kind of nice to see this Nesta and Mor dynamic right now, especially when you had their really chilly interaction at the beginning of this book. And Mor points out that Nesta needs a dress, although Nesta has reservations on the style of dress because Mor and Feyre are very much used to going with the nude side of things. Quote, Nesta had no issues with nudity before her bedroom partners, but in public, the human had not been ripped from her entirely. Nesta's more private person. She's always been a more private person. Does that make her human? We know that the human world is a bit more quote unquote prudish, but I think that Nesta is generally just a private person. And she's still hurting and wants to have her humanity, and it's something that she's clinging on to. So it's kind of hard to be are you clinging on to it because you genuinely don't feel comfortable with it, which I do believe, or are you extra clinging on to it because in your mind it also represents humanity?
Yeah, which is a great question. Now, it is nice, like Jack said, that Mor and Nesta are capable of having a civil conversation. And even Nesta's kind of thrown off. I genuinely don't think she understands or knows how to interpret it. Because when Nesta asks Mor if the plans around Eris bother her, quote, Mor considered, no, because I know you're going to make him crawl before the end of it. It wasn't a compliment, not really. But Nesta's an unreliable narrator. Is it perhaps a compliment? Is it perhaps a peace offering on Mor's part? I think Nesta is wary because deep down she really wants Mor to like her. And that's because at the end of the day, Mor is like a sister to both Feyre and Cassian. They both love Mor deeply. And I think we get a hint of Nesta's not desperation, but her desire to become closer to Mor when Mor sees Clotho. Quote, my old friend, Mor said, her face lit with warmth. The face she showed everyone in this court except for Nesta and those in the hewn city. Shame tightened Nesta's gut. Is it shame? I mean, in a lot of ways, just how Mor acts, and it's intentional or not intentional, but from Nesta's point of view, Mor treats Nesta the same way Mor treats everybody in the city. And that's a place, the Court of Nightmares, right? Those are
Yeah.
bad people. Nesta doesn't want to be like those bad people. So I think it's a telling moment for Nesta.
Yeah, I still think that the fact that Moore does associate her with the Hewn City is still fucked. It's too much of a leap. I don't like it.
Well, but that's Nesta's interpretation.
No, yes and no, because Moore tells her at the beginning of the book, she compares her to the Hewn City. She goes, I know people who are like you.
That's right.
So it's not a huge leap for her to be making here. But yeah, I mean, like, I get what she's saying, that she feels shame with it. I feel like Moore is more warm to Nesta right now. And I really do like this exchange with Nesta and Moore, because I think for me, it shows hope to their dynamic. Quote. So this is while they're with Clotho, and Clotho's like, how are you doing, Moore? But through writing on a scroll. And Moore says, quote, Nesta's been running me ragged with these dance lessons, but I've been fine. That's what you say with like a friend, right? You know, it's a more casual, fun stance here, and very tongue in cheek. And we didn't note it, but I'll summarize it now. Moore tells Nesta to call her Moore and not Morrigan. And Nesta agrees. And she goes, okay, then Moore it is. And it's a peace offering between the two of them, right? Moore offered her nickname and Nesta accepted it and is going to call her Moore now. And it gives me hope that I can not be pissed off with Moore. I'm so tired of being angry at so many people, and Amren currently has the monopoly now, so long as Nesta can play nice. Anyway, we could be saving this next thing for the Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks, but I want to do it right now. Quote. So just to give you a context, Nesta goes over, sees Gwen, and sees that Emery is with them, and, you know, we get some little spice. Quote, I want to see where you two work, Emery said, eyes upon Clotho and Moore a level above. She sighed, nodding towards Moore. I always forget how beautiful she is. She never comes to Windhaven these days. Nesta could have sworn pink stole over Emery's brown cheeks, because Emery is into Moore. And again, I know that this is a breadcrumb situation, but I just feel like it's worth having a brief moment of consideration of saying, I doubt that the Illyrians are very LGBTQ friendly. I also know that the Hewn City is not very more LGBTQ friendly, likely. More friendly, not more as in More friendly, but it is just something that they will definitely likely bond over in the future. And I'm hoping that having the two of them come from conservative backgrounds will be a very good and poignant part of upcoming book.
I hope so too. I also think, you know, the fact that Moore and Nesta are having their peace offering exchange, and literally within the next, 100 steps, Emery is looking at Moore longingly, tells me that there are good things to come for Emery and Moore, and that because of that connection, maybe Moore and Nesta can be friends.
Yeah. It's like, fine, I'll fuck your best friend if you fuck mine.
Yeah. Now, while Emery and Nesta wait for Gwyn, who has run off to get their solstice gifts, Emery can hear her father yelling from the pit of the library, which, as a reminder, is where Bryaxis used to be, and Bryaxis is fear incarnate. Nesta immediately figures out what's happening and takes care of her friend. Quote, Nesta had gathered enough. The man had been a beast like Thomas Mandray's father. Let's go up a level where the darkness doesn't whisper so loudly. I'm sure Gwen will find us easily enough. She linked her arm with Emery's, pressing her body close, letting some of her warmth leak into her friend. It's just a nice little touch that even though Nesta and Moore are kind of, not figuring their stuff out, kind of figuring their stuff out, Nesta does know how to take care of other people, especially those she identifies with. And that's because she knows what she would need in this moment. She can be nurturing to those she understands. And I think that's a win.
Absolutely. Gwen shows up with a little solstice present and gives Emery and Nesta a gift. And that gift is the 21st chapter on the Valkyries, which includes them. Quote, it's about the rebirth of the Valkyries, about what we're doing. To have a legacy and to have that on paper and prove what you've been doing and to prove what you've done and how you've grown, there is so much power to that. And Gwen tells them, quote, our stories are worth telling. And it's so powerful to feel worthy. I'm not saying that you have to have stuff written about you to be worthy, but just that feeling of being worthy. Because right now, Nesta has only been defined by her past actions and how she drank, gambled, slept around, right? That's how she's been defined until this point. But right now, in paper, in the history books, literally the history books, she will be remembered for something far greater than a bad time that she had, than her darkest points. And we should be measured by, I mean, unless you did a truly horrible thing, like, no. But in general, we should not be defined by our darkest moments.
I love that. And I love that in some ways, this is kind of meta for SJM, right?
Yeah. Ooh,
we as a
yeah.
fandom know SJM in one way, but in a lot of ways, she is telling her own story about depression and fear and, you know, struggling with worth. And in some ways, she's saying to herself and to us that even those who struggle with feeling insignificant, with feeling like failures, have a story worth telling. And I think that's beautiful.
Absolutely. In my head, I'm singing Hamilton's Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Our Stories. Nesta is taking everything on. She's like, trauma what? Not today, bitch. And she's with the house and she tells it, quote, "I'd like to try a fire," she said quietly, "a small one. Progress, and it's her willingness to grow, but also willing to do this on her own and not with Cassian. So Cassian is out right now. He says that he's going to be away for the night. And Nesta is doing this journey on her own. And I think it's very important that she does this. I think it's important that SJM showed this. And I think it's beautiful.
I do too. And I think it's beautiful that while she's trying to face her discomfort and sit with the fire, she focuses on the carved rose her father made for Elaine, which she has put on her mantle. Quote,
After she took it from the cottage.
After she took it from the cottage, by the way, because we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. There's a point where she picks up a bear that her dad carved and she was looking at it. And then Cassian was like, "Would you have accepted anything that he made for you?" And she was like, no, he knew better not to. There was a lot to analyze from that chapter that we said no thank you.
We only have so much attention. Quote, Nesta hadn't let herself dwell on why she'd felt the need to set the rose there near a statue of the mother, but she remained sitting, staring at that carved rose. The rose sits kind of like an offering next to the statue of the mother, and it might be meager, but it is a symbol of Papa Archeron's love, and she wonders why she can't let it go, but I think it's beautiful because she can finally see it for what it is, that it is a representation of love, and that it metaphorically has endured a harsh winter. And quite frankly, this scene moved me to tears because it's a good reminder that even small victories are worth celebrating. Quote, she didn't know why she found herself on the verge of tears as the cinders smoldered. Didn't know why the rush of pride that filled her chest made her want to laugh and whoop and dance around the room. She hadn't done anything more than sit by a fire, but she had sat, stayed. She had not failed, and she had faced it and survived.
How guaranteed is it that when we get Elaine's book, whether that's in book 6, 7, or 8, Nesta gives Elaine that rose?
Well, no, she puts it on Papa Archeron's grave at the end of this.
Oh, right. That sucks because that was Elaine's. What a bitch move, actually. Damn. I'm going to take this gift that probably means more to Elaine. She could have taken the bear.
I mean, actually, I think it says a lot that Elaine didn't take it with her when the wealth came back.
Yeah, she's a bitch too. No. No. Nesta and the house have a lovely moment, and the house kind of like lures Nesta into the depths of the lower levels, and it shows Nesta its dark places, literally and figuratively. Quote, "You are trying to show others who you are deep down, what haunts you. You are trying to show them all those dark, broken pieces because the priestesses and Emery and we're the same as you." Whatever, SJM, I'll do whatever you say. But I'm also like, I don't want a friend making me listen to the traumatic childhood. You know what I mean? Like, you're making Emery hear her abusive father break furniture, and it's like, no, I'm trying to bond with you. It's like, what have you gone through? House redecoration? Like, what the fuck? Anyway. But we also know that the house is sentient, right? Like, even though it's sentient, it is also a representative of Nesta and her own inner turmoil. So it's like Nesta showing a bit of Nesta to Nesta.
Yeah, I associate the bad memories with Bryaxis and less with the house. But I see your point. Maybe the house is just like, I have no other way to communicate.
Other than showing you your greatest trauma and having you relive it with sounds.
Yeah, I have no defense. I will say, though, it is significant that Nesta is having this realization, within the same time frame as her facing the fire in the hearth. The space that the house leads her to is, quote, untouched by the light from the library high, high above, the heart of the world, of existence, of self, the heart of the house. This, her fingers tightened on the lantern, this darkness is your heart. Nesta has literally just braved her own fear and the darkness in her own heart and succeeded. And so the house, being part of Nesta, has deemed Nesta ready to face the house's darkness and accept the darkness in its heart, just as much as she's accepted the darkness in her heart. Quote, again, Nesta could have sworn that phantom touch caressed her neck, her cheek, her brow. Happy solstice, she said, into the beautiful, fractured darkness. The metaphor is just so beautiful.
It is.
And understanding that the house / Nesta is deserving of friendship, of joy, of companionship, regardless of that darkness, regardless of the broken pieces, is a really beautiful metaphor. And Nesta's come a long way to earn that. All right, Jack, that is the end of our analysis. And I have a question, which I guess I kind of answered in the process.
No, but I have a better answer now.
Oh,
No,
okay. In what way do the smaller victories in these chapters outweigh the larger ones?
You can't have a large victory without small victories. And honoring the small victories are arguably far more important than honoring the big victories. And I'm going to say this as someone who, as of April 23rd, it'll have been 1 year since I started my own weight loss journey, and I have lost 3 pounds shy of 50 pounds total. And I now have like a online trainer. Amy and I both have the same trainer. And I was talking to her about it this week and just saying like how I'm like, I just want the next big win, right? The next big thing, the next big milestone. And she was like, you are missing the little victories. If you're only focusing on these big victories, like you are not going to succeed if that's all you focus on. Focus on the victory that you hit all your macros. Focus on the victory that you walked every single day. Like these are the small wins, and you will not get a big win. Your big wins will mean nothing if you do not have the small victories. So, I think that, well, yes, it might feel obvious of saying, as we're talking about it, we're like, we answered our question throughout. But I think it's so worth repeating that this isn't just a thing for Nesta. This is probably one of the most valuable bits of walking away and learning from a book, that emotional message that SJM could have given to her readers. And I hope that this is the thing that people really stick with and walk away with from this episode and from this book.
Yeah. I think that's really, really beautiful. It's so funny because Erin said the same thing to me.
And I saw her the day before you. So I'm wondering if she was like, rinse and repeat.
She was like, I did just talk to one of the other girls about this. And now it's like, it was Jack. You could have just said
she could have just said so. I was like, what do I need to sign? I consent for you to talk to Amy about everything.
But I think it's an extremely important lesson, and I think it's the easiest lesson to forget, and if we want to equate it to a war metaphor, because Cassian is a general, you only win the war by winning the battles, right?
Yeah.
The war is not a single event. It's all the battles throughout, and that's every day is a battle, and we have to win every day, and those wins are small. And you know what? I can do bite-sized wins.
We can do bite-sized wins, and we can all do bite-sized wins. And we just have to celebrate the bite-sized wins just as hard, if not more, than the big wins. Like, I really get in my head of the fact that I've lost almost 50 pounds. And I feel like that's so much. And yet I get caught up of like, okay, well, I gained 2 pounds from yesterday. And it's like, well, also, no, I haven't gone to the bathroom. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, then I know it's going to go back up and go back down. And I just reached this one new number and I haven't weighed this much, and it's so easy to get caught up there versus sitting here and thinking a year ago, 50 pounds heavier, like, holy shit, that's huge.
Yeah,
I never thought I would be someone who would lose 50 pounds in their, in a year type thing. And it blows my mind. This scene and this stuff with Nesta, with her sitting by the fire and being able to have gotten through it on her own, because again, the small victories, those happen on your own. And you can have help and you can have things, supporting you, but like you got to do those small victories and you have to celebrate those small victories. And if there was like any kind of like tattoo moment of inspiration that I would do, it would be like that moment of her listening to the fire on her own. Like that's the scene that I would want. Like, what's the symbol somehow, which would be a fire, but it's so overplayed.
Yeah, I was just thinking if I made it a quote, it would be like, I am the beautiful fractured darkness.
Oh,
that's what I was thinking.
That's a great one to do. I am the beautiful fractured darkness. That's a good one.
Thanks.
Where are you going to put it? I told myself if I get another tattoo, it can't be another quote, which is unfortunate because all the things I like are quotes.
But you can do something that symbolizes the quote to you.
No. Because what I'm imagining isn't pretty. I'm also not an artiste. Someone was asking for more sexy chicken merch to bring it back.
Oh my. Okay. I'll think about it.
All right. If you would like sexy chicken merch, tell us in the Spotify comments. Just like that one episode where I said, tell us if your team windows in the mountains. And then everyone was like, Amy's right. And then I read all the messages talking about how Amy's right when Amy was sad to make her feel better.
It really did help, guys. Thank you.
I knew it would. All right. Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us Wednesday for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks discussion from today's chapters from Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Silver Flames.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And, of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini-episode or a Patreon-exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. And don't forget to join us as we keep the analysis going by subscribing to our Substack to get more insights into the romantasy and romance genres. Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com. Bye. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
Amy, we were just in New York for BookCon, and did you notice that all of the New York girlies were wearing quints?
You're so right. They were stylish, street appropriate, but also business casual.
It's amazing how I was spotting some of Quince's staple pieces on the street. I can always spot one of their Mongolian cashmeres from a mile away because it's always so soft and so nice. Quince really spends time on making sure they give you the best quality clothing they can with premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim.
Their styles make getting dressed simpler. They make me feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together with tops that start at just $30. You can't beat that for work.
Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup.
Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk.
When I moved in with my partner is when I realized how much effort she puts into her skincare. She spends so much time and money just on what she puts on her skin. But the one thing she doesn't invest in is our bedding.
Well, that's because you're now investing in it with Boll and Branch.
From their organic cotton sheets to their breathable pillows and comforters, Boll and Branch makes their bedding with ultra clean materials that are gentle on the skin and free from harsh chemicals.
Boll and Branch really feels like my first grown-up sheets, and you can really feel the difference with their signature sheet sets. Remember, these sheets are touching you for up to 8 hours every single night. You're going to want to have the best sheets possible. Have you noticed that the pockets of the fitted sheets are perfect for forming around the mattress?
This is the first set of sheets that I haven't had to help my partner put them on the bed because the pockets are too small. They are so easy to get on the bed.
These are honestly the first pair of sheets that I have that I don't wake up with my sheets halfway wrapped around me. They are durable, they are soft, and the longer you use them, the softer they become.
Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/booktalk with code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/BOOKTALK, and use code BOOKTALK to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply.